Shall I admit to you that I had a difficult time getting started on the message for this morning? Or shall I keep up our culture's commonly accepted facade that everything is fine and easy? Well, as a recovering perfectionist, I am still, on occasion, challenged to let go of some of my higher aspirations so I can simply dig in and get going on something, like sermon writing, for instance. And I suspect I'm not alone in this characteristic. Our friends and family members sometimes unwittingly, sometimes not so unwittingly, collude with us in this endeavor to have everything just so and to get everything just right. Our greater society certainly urges us to do so. One of the ways that this need to do and be better has been transmitted through our culture is through the need to keep up with the Joneses. You've heard that expression, haven't you? Okay, good, it's in Arizona, awesome. And now it seems we also need to keep up with the Garcias and the Jeffersons and the Chans, among the many who are rightfully reaching for greater economic prosperity and a successful life in our country. As an example, one of the more common ways this tendency shows itself in our society is through the annual holiday card. Each year we receive, and some of us write in return, a holiday missive which usually details only the good, if not the most wonderful part of our family's lives. The guise for these letters is that we want to keep in touch with our loved ones, and I think we do. But they've also turned into something more, an opportunity to put our best feet forward. We hear about the soccer championships, the new jobs, the exciting vacations, and the excellent grades. In addition, we also learn how happy everyone seems to be successfully accomplishing so much. True, we sometimes also hear about the job that didn't work out so well, or how someone's child is taking a break from college. But those tales seem to be the exception rather than the rule. With 24-hour access to social media, what used to be a once-a-year occurrence has become a 24/7 opportunity for comparison. And this is just with the people that we personally know. The fantasy comparisons that we make with celebrities and other commonly known strangers are just as prevalent. A while ago, I was flipping through a women's fashion magazine, and I don't think I need to go into detail about the beautiful, slender, trending images that we see on those glossy pages. But I did want to mention a caption on one of the ads I saw, and it said, "Busy? Not enough time? Not enough sleep? Feeling stressed? There's no need to let it show. Try," and then it had the name of the product that miraculously sucks the dark circles out from under your eyes, as demonstrated with a photo of a beautiful, smiling woman who looked like she had recently returned from a weekend spa experience. But really, why would we want to let our frustration show? Why shouldn't we continue on as though everything is well and going perfectly, even when it isn't? I'm not advocating that we throw a temper tantrum when things aren't going our way. But what is wrong with taking a deep breath and letting whomever you happen to be with know that you are having a rough day and would appreciate a little grace? What's wrong with canceling a non-urgent appointment on occasion to take a much-needed nap? Well, I can give some answers that I and probably others have readily thought. If I do that, I'll let somebody down. They'll think ill of me, and I'll have more work to make up later. Besides, I'm tough. I can just push through and get it done. Maybe the worst of these is this thought. If I don't push through, I'll prove to others, and especially myself, that I'm not as good as everyone else. I'll realize that deep down, I'm a slacker. That's not a very good feeling to have about oneself. So we do push on and through, but at what cost? We get so busy and distracted by our busyness that our health can suffer. We might become distressed or anxious from the mental angst we're putting ourselves through. Or we can become way too good at something that only adds to our feelings of low self-worth, procrastination. Then, while we're dealing with all of these side effects, we continue to move forward in lives that no longer have deep meaning for us. We've lost our way in all the accomplishments that our society has set forth for us, accomplishments that we're told we need to have value. Instead of nurturing that plant that is tilting and yearning towards the light, we find we've forgotten to water the plant one too many times. And perhaps this time the damage might be irreparable. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel my anxiety level go up simply by thinking about all of this. Okay, deep breath. And again, deep breath. A representative young couple I know, we'll call them Juan and George, were on their way to the American dream. They both worked jobs that required 50+ hours a week. They had 2 young children, a part-time nanny, a beautiful home, nice cars, and at least a 30-minute daily commute each way to their jobs. Because they were so busy and wanted to focus a lot of their free time on their children, they ate a lot of takeout food. Because they didn't have much spare time, they didn't exercise or participate in other self-nurturing activities. Because of these choices, their schedules were starting to take a toll. George and Juan kept telling each other that things would get better once their children were just a little bit older, or when they got their next promotion, or even simply when spring came, halting the interwindless rains. I'm talking about Oregon. You guys kind of have spring all the time. And then they could get outside more. Besides, they rationalized, didn't everyone go through this? Isn't this what people were supposed to do when they built lives for themselves? Eventually, after they fulfilled their responsibilities as they had been taught, there would be more time for exploring less conventional dreams. Then Juan, who was only in his 30s, had a major heart attack. Maybe keeping up with the Chans had been too much for him. When Juan finally got out of the hospital, there were weeks of rehab and some serious soul-searching for both Juan and George about what was really important to them in their lives. What, they wondered, was going to make them feel good, regardless of what society encouraged. When Juan did return to work, it was to a position with less responsibility and fewer hours. He also started riding his bike, a lot. Juan decided that whatever else happened in his life, he wanted to be healthy so he could play an active role in his children's lives as they grew older. And simply put, he wanted more joy. So he actively began to reflect on what he was doing and strive towards that end. Then what started as a way to gain more health became a passion for him. Soon, Juan was entering fun rides and bicycle events to raise money for charities. As a family, they all started to make more lifestyle changes. George and the children began volunteering at the bike events that Juan attended. Together, Juan and George decided that Juan would quit his job and become a stay-at-home parent. It was a really big step, and Juan knew that there were folks who would question his decision. And they also knew that they'd have to continue making different choices to accommodate earning less money. But they felt the benefits to their family would far outweigh the drawbacks. They realized that they wanted to create their own value and meaning in their lives, rather than rely on society's dictates for their direction and worth. Perhaps what they ended up with wouldn't match up to someone else's dreams, but it would be plenty for them, and that was what mattered. This need for self-worth, it can cause us to do all kinds of crazy things, can't it? Not only are we encouraged to accomplish all kinds of tasks, but our anxiety about them can become so high that we may come to believe that there are only certain specific ways to do them. I was recently watching a TV show, a sitcom, I'll admit, where one of the characters decided to make friends with her neighbors by making and giving candy to them every so often. This was something that she enjoyed doing, and her gift was wonderfully received. One neighbor even described her candy's taste as a little taste of heaven. Since her neighbors were so appreciative of her talent, how could she not continue to supply as much candy as they needed? Soon the TV character was sleepless and half crazed because the quality of her candy had to reach that heavenly standard every time, after all. Nothing less would do. The madness continued on her part until a friend very assertively told the other neighbors that there would be no more candy making. Granted, this scenario was done in a sitcom, so it does seem a little extreme, but how many of us have been flattered into overusing our talents to the point that something that once gave us joy now leaves us feeling empty inside when we contemplate doing more? These kind of persuasive requests can often happen in our religious communities. Think of when we discover that someone in our midst is an accountant, a school teacher, or an excellent facilitator. Those folks become our go-to people whenever we need someone to fulfill tasks related to those professions. And it can be hard for these folks to say no, because they want to be of service, they want to contribute. And they wonder, won't people think that they're being stingy with their gifts if they don't help? In fact, others may not actually think this way about them, but such is the self-talk that many of us have been trained to repeat to ourselves that saying no may be nearly impossible if we are to maintain any amount of self-worth within our own eyes. This can be especially sad when this happens in our religious communities, since it is here that we hope to nurture one another and our world into our best selves, just like Kat was saying in the welcome earlier today. And sometimes realizing our best self can only happen when we allow ourselves to reach outside our regular boxes and try something new. A few minutes ago, I admitted my own perfectionist tendencies sometimes kept me from starting a project. And I know I'm not alone in this, but don't worry, I won't make you raise your hands. When I was in grad school, it was common to hear my professors or fellow students talk about how clean their home was. This was especially common if they had a lesson plan to prepare or a paper to write the previous night or weekend. After all, if they weren't going to get started on what really needed to happen, at least they could do something. House cleaning, at least in my opinion, is a somewhat healthy way to procrastinate and deal with perfectionist tendencies, and at least it provides a positive outcome. But there are many other ways that we avoid tasks at hand, some of them healthy, some others not so much. There's binge TV watching, socializing with our friends, sometimes by eating or drinking too much. There's a wide variety of things a person can conjure up to do in order not to face their concerns about not doing something well enough. Unfortunately, at the end of our procrastination feast, we've not only convinced ourselves that we weren't up to the task, we may also have shown that we can't meet our obligations. Neither is a very happy outcome for someone feeling so pressured to do well from whatever source that they self-sabotage their attempts even before they've started. In essence, they've poisoned their seed of potential and growth even before the rain has a chance to fall on it or the sun has come back out to warm the soil where it lies. And really, what is the worst case scenario in any of these examples that we've discussed this morning? What is so terrible about taking even a small step outside the box of someone else's expectations? Assuming, of course, that what we're doing is legal, we might make a mistake or disappoint someone. Perhaps we might even disappoint ourselves. But weren't we disappointing ourselves before by not living authentically while we tried instead to live up to some other person's or our culture's expectations? Isn't making mistakes one of the ways that we learn and grow? Failing sometimes puts us in the most unexpected situations, and from there we are challenged to move on, to use our creativity and intelligence and skills in ways we may never have considered because we had never envisioned being in that particular circumstance. That mistake or failure may be difficult, even painful. But aren't the things that we learn about ourselves worth the challenge? Don't those lessons learned add to our self-knowledge and capabilities, creating more self-confidence for the rest of our journey? Don't we learn how to bend more gracefully when the wind gets too strong, as well as how to make better decisions that will add to self-worth when the weather is more tempered? So often in our spiritual lives, we are encouraged and sometimes challenged to remember that every person has inherent worth and dignity. But what we often forget in that same instance of remembering is that those people with worth and dignity also include us. It's an easy thing to forget when there are so many pressures out there we can't possibly hope to fulfill, and so many negative messages that tell us we are not good enough simply as we are in this moment. But our religious lives as Unitarian Universalists tell us strongly and firmly that we are good enough, right now, right here. Truly, we are. Let's take a moment and reflect. Close your eyes, get comfortable, and think about a time when you felt good about something that you did. It doesn't have to be a perfect action. Maybe you were helping someone or walking out in the nature. Maybe it was the time that you had the courage to politely say no to something. Perhaps you were trying something new and found out you could do it, not perfectly, but you could do it all the same. Do you have that positive, wonderful time in your mind? Let that good feeling sweep over and envelop you like a warm, soft blanket. If you wish, hug yourself gently as if your arms are that warm blanket. Now, feel that good emotion expand as it encircles your entire being. Try extending your arms out a little from your body to enlarge that sense of well-being. Use it to store up those good feelings to carry you through difficult times. Try to remember that feeling, letting it shower you with love no matter what. No matter what we as imperfect, creative humans may do or don't do, despite the messages we may receive. Will you come back to the room? We are worthy of love from others, and most especially from ourselves. We are all worthy of love. May that love transform us and transform our world as we yearn for and lean into the sun. Amen and blessed be.